Hello friends, Julie Gualandri here with the Julie G Homes Group at Austin Portfolio Real Estate with your real estate report for the end of February 2023. We are off to I'm just going to call it a start. I'm not sure how to characterize things. We are still in a bit of a shifting, uncertain market situation, but I have some data that I have pulled from the Austin Board of Realtors. If you've ever looked at data, you know, especially economic data, that it lags by a couple of months. But we did finally get the January report. So we have data from January that we can compare to last January. And it is like, I've been waiting for this because last January, the market was still running wild and interest rates were still super low. And now we have that environment to compare to this past January. And I think, we still have pundits and newspapers and publications all saying, oh my God, Austin's gonna crash more. We've already had a fairly good sized correction. And then, some of the investment bankers and others are still claiming that we still have more to go. So not sure I'm on board with that theory just yet, because that's what it is. It's a theory. We don't know what's going to happen truly until we see what happens with interest rates this year, quite honestly. That is the key driver to all of this. So let me get back to my January statistics, because I do want to share these with you. I've got them written down here on a little cheat sheet. And so we're going to kind of go broad and then head narrow. And I think it tells the story of what's happening. So this again is January this year compared to January last year. So for the whole state of Texas, which these numbers are fairly meaningless because every community and every neighborhood and every community is different. But it gives us an idea of just trend. So transactions, so the number of homes sold in January of 2023 was 28% less than the same month last year. So transaction volume was down 28%, and then the dollar volume of those transactions was down 26%. So that's tracking pretty well. And then the average price of a home in the state of Texas, I think it was $386,000 was the average for the whole state, was down 3% from this time last year. So not a crash. I don't think I call that a crash. City of Austin. So now we're coming down more local. For the city limits of Austin, and then the city limits are vast, so we're still looking at lots of different, the number itself is not super helpful when you're looking at your own home, but for the sake of trends, our transactions in the city of Austin were down 37% January over January. And then the dollar volume was down 35%. So that's why we've been like, holy smokes, wow, that's a huge difference, and it's higher than the whole state of Texas. So now let's look at Southwest Austin. Transactions here were down 31%, so less than all of the city. Dollar volume was down 30%, so that tracks as well. But what's interesting is the average price was down 1.9%. So let's just park here for a second. What does that mean? That to me means that Southwest Austin is a very desirable place, because overall our little corner hasn't been hit quite as hard as other places, and every neighborhood is different. It has its own submarket and pricing and demand and all of it, and supply. So what I think that tells me, that shows me what happened, what I felt actually happened, that a lot of sellers chose not to stay on the market, and then they haven't come back yet. So thereby holding supply lower, and for those buyers that are willing to be in the market, they have a little less to choose from than they might if the whole situation felt better to sellers. So let's go on to Hays County. Transactions were down only 11.9%. And the dollar volume was down 16%. And I think that is reflective of the fact that there are so many builders in Hays County right now. There is greenfield, new construction neighborhoods, And builders, I always watch builders and their behavior because they tell me which way the market is going. And I think I mentioned this before. I bought my home here in Austin in 2008, and we bought from a builder because they were the most negotiable, and we got the best deal from them. And I think that's true now in Hays County. Builders have inventory. They're continuing to build. That's how they run their business. They can't just stop building and wait till prices get better like a resale seller could. So I think that explains how the transactions were down less because more people went to buy new construction year over year. And then the dollar volume was down a little bit more because they have softened the prices. And the average price in Hays County was down 5.5%, which would also be explained by more new construction. Now I've been super interested in sort of what I would consider the investor corridor that we've always had of, kind of the northeast side of town. So that's Round Rock, Pflugerville, and Hutto now is considered part of our MSA. So transactions there were down 44%. And that's significant. And the dollar volume was down 48%. And the average price there was down 6.3% over 2022. So that's just putting a little data behind things we've discussed much of this, not necessarily kind of what's going on the northeast side of town, but I think it explains, it's always nice when we have data to explain what we're maybe feeling in the market. So I will just be continuing to watch the whole situation. I'm getting ready to list some properties for the spring, as other agents will be. It's not as many yet as I would have hoped for, but I think we can explain the reluctance of sellers by the prices that have come down from a high, which would have been last year. And they're going to wait. I've had several people say, last year they said we're going to sell next year, and now they're saying we're going to stay in our house as long as possible. Probably because they have a really nice low interest rate, and now interest rates are at the moment popping up over 7%. So that seems to be a place where a lot of people throw the brakes on. So I'm continuing to work with my buyers and just encouraging them to do what's right for them. However, during this environment where we do have spring listings coming on and we do have fewer buyers willing to do something, then guess what? That makes the buyers that are in the market able to negotiate more. So that is where we are. It is longer than I intended. I apologize for the very long discussion, but I hope you found it helpful. Happy to share the data with you. I have the reports from the Board of Realtors. If you'd like them, just send me a note and I'll be happy to share them with you. Have a wonderful month, and I will catch up with you in the 1st of April.